Got it. Okay, and can you see what is machine learning here? Okay, I'm going to show you this little video. Maybe. There we go. I don't know why it wasn't giving me the finger.
As a kid, I was really inspired by the explorers. I grew up in Seattle, and Lewis and Clark were kind of heroes locally. And I wanted to be an explorer when I grew up. As an electrical engineer, I would always look for new things that we can do that just weren't ever possible. And machine learning and research is an exploration. It feels like an intellectual exploration.
We've definitely seen a big uptake in the last 5 years in what machines are able to do compared to, say, the previous decade or two.
With the advent of a lot more data and a lot more computing power, we really can think bigger and sort of change the game about what kind of models we can envision.
The real world is actually very messy. Hard logical rules are not the way to solve real-world problems.
So machine learning is all about learning from examples.
Rather than writing 500,000 lines of code, we instead have the machine learn from observations about the world.
And we look through a bunch of these examples in the machine learning algorithm, maybe millions, maybe billions, maybe even trillions, to identify the patterns and generalize from there.
In the task of image recognition, we've been able to train models to take the pixels of an image and from those pixels, learn high-level features.
It starts to learn that if you see a cake and you see a kid, it's maybe a birthday party. If you see a cake and lots of kids, it's very likely a birthday party. That's essentially teaching the machines to do the perceptions that we humans are so natural and so good at.
You realize just how amazing humans are, just how amazing your 4-year-old is who can recognize faces.
Machine learning has really been the beginning of a big revolution in the field of speech recognition.
To teach speech recognition, how to interact with a noisy room. We used real-world sounds, and we mix it into the examples that we already have.
Is it cold outside? Is it cold outside? Is it cold outside?
Now, no matter what the noise in the environment, our speech recognition systems can understand what you're saying. They can separate out one speaker from another.
With machine learning, we have now an algorithm that learns how to simulate a human linguist.
A lot of the language that we see today, it's very informal.
Blah, 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 blah. And they say, OK.
Interspersed with emojis and stickers. Now, with Google, we're getting to the point where you can have a much more natural conversation.
Any good Mexican places around here? Here you go.
The assistant product that we're building at Google uses the best of our machine learning techniques in speech recognition, image understanding, natural language understanding.
That's a promising direction for developing systems that can really navigate the mess of the real world. We wanted to make this an open source project so that everyone outside of Google could use the same system we're using inside Google.
There are lots of people who have made very, very creative uses of it without knowing a single bit of machine learning. So if they have the ideas, they don't need to do the heavy lifting that we've already done.
I saw a cool example where somebody used to have a cat going around their house all the time, so they trained a model to identify whenever the cat was there, and they would turn the sprinklers on to scare the cat away.
This elderly couple in Japan who ran a cucumber farm, and one of the big tasks is to sort the cucumbers into, like, prickly ones, less prickly ones, straight ones, curved ones, and it's actually a complicated task. So the wife would spend many hours a day sorting cucumbers. So the son picked up a computer vision model and was able to build a system to categorize the cucumbers and sort them automatically. All the time wasted sorting cucumbers is just going to be used in much better ways.
387 million people with diabetes are at risk for diabetic retinopathy. It causes blindness. The way that you can find signs of diabetic retinopathy is by taking pictures of the back of the eye. But there's just simply not enough doctors, and it takes hours for an interpretation. So we trained an algorithm that can read the images right then and there. The algorithm can help the doctors get more people screened for the disease.
The more you see machine learning and the kinds of things it can do, the more you see opportunity for it to improve people's lives.
You can use machine learning to save power at significant scales, even track the spread of diseases and epidemics.
We can use a computer vision model for everyone who's visually impaired.
We could make speech recognizer for everyone on the planet and drastically improve the experience of millions and billions of people.
I don't see any area of science or even of human endeavor that learned systems can't help with.
If you'd asked me a few years ago if a computer would be able to do this anytime soon, I would have said, I don't really think so.
It's very, very empowering to imagine what's going to come.
We're thinking thoughts and doing things that, no man has ever done, and sort of setting forth and setting foot in really new intellectual territory here.
The promise of AI and machine learning is that we can actually produce solutions to previously unsolved problems that will really help people.
Oops, I was going to continue sharing. Sorry about that. So back to that. Okay, so that was kind of a more simpler way of getting the information that we had gotten from our speaker. One of the things about that video that struck me was so much of this is happening behind the scenes that we're not even aware of. A few years ago, I was looking through my photos on my phone because I wanted to find some of our camping trips with our camper, and I never titled my photos. So just out of curiosity, I typed the word camper in, hit return, and there were half of our vacation pictures that showed up. So then I tried it with other search terms for things that were in my pictures, and even though I hadn't given them titles or anything, my phone was able to find it. The next slide here, slide 6, just kind of visualizes it. A lot of the things that we already heard from the speaker. You got to feed in the training data. A lot of times there's a model written, and then the computer uses labels to test the model, checks it against the label, and if it's right or wrong, then that's computed and the information is updated. So it's kind of an ongoing process that is done. What is machine learning? We've kind of covered this, but it's changed a lot. So the first examples were probably checkers or chess on the computer, and then some basic sorting, learning, and then deeper learning. So now we can think of it as computers are learning all the time. They get a new example, a model, and in the deeper learning, they can make predictions on what is happening or what could happen. Like, you buy this seed and you have this soil and these weather conditions, this is what's going to happen. And some of the types of machine learning, and she had several, she mentioned these in her presentation. They talk about supervised, where it's task-driven, predicting the next value. Unsupervised, that'd be more data-driven. An example of that is spam filters. They look at certain words and decide that it's probably spam or could be spam. And then reinforcement learning from mistakes. And this is an example of this would be a computer playing chess. But that's kind of a simplified version of it. What we're going to do now is we're going to kind of make an algorithm and kind of simulate a little bit of the computer recognition. One person is going to ask for 2 volunteers. One will look at the pictures on the next slide, pick a celebrity, and I'm going to stop sharing right now while we do this. There. So on slide 10 is where I'm at. It's a guess who activity. First of all, we need 2 volunteers. Just raise your hand or say your name if you want to volunteer. It's fairly painless. There are no prizes.
I'll volunteer.
Was that Ashley?
I can volunteer also.
And was that Tim?
Brian.
Tim W. Okay. Ashley, let's have you be the first student. So you're going to look at the pictures on the next slide. You're going to pick one of those individuals if everybody wants to look at that slide. So those are celebrities. And Tim's going to try to guess who you picked by asking you yes or no questions. And then when he, right, let him know. Okay, Tim.
Brian is the one that's doing it.
Who is?
Yeah, I volunteered, but if you really want
Oh,
Tim
sorry.
to do it, I'll give it up to Tim. If he
No,
wants.
no. If Brian volunteered, he should get to do it. Yeah. Okay, so Brian's going to answer the questions. Ask the questions.
Ask the
and
questions.
Ashley
Okay.
will answer.
And it's just out of those in the picture there, right? So kind of like the Guess Who game.
Right.
Okay.
Yep.
Do they have facial hair?
No.
Are they wearing a suit?
No.
Do they have dark hair?
Yes.
Are they male?
No.
Are they older than 30?
Yes.
Is it Oprah?
No.
Is it Stephanie?
No.
Is it Beyonce?
Yes, you got it.
Okay. Now think about the questions and let's look at the next slide here. We could do it a couple of times, but you guys get the idea. But this is a good one to do with students. So, Brian, what were some of the features that you were using?
Well, just ones that like distinguished, and I could have probably done more like 50-50, but I was just trying to pick ones that maybe would kind of for sure narrow people down.
Mm-hmm.
It's like distinguishing feature, like the facial hair, wearing a suit or hat, that kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm. So as you think about this, think about some ways that it could have been done in maybe fewer questions. As students work on this, they can maybe practice looking at, you know, like you said, you were looking at some distinct things or ways to eliminate all at once. But very good. Let's move on to slide 13. And I'm not going to share with you. I'm going to let you guys go through these. Slide 13 talks about a decision tree. And this is an algorithm that's used a lot for classifications where it's goes through like the example there. There's a question. If there's a yes, you go one way. If there's a no, the other way. And then you go down until you get to a decision or a classification that you can make. So look at slide 14 and look at that decision tree. And then how would we classify the following words according to this decision tree? So the words are rhythm, bibliophobia, emergence, and Zen. So you got to go down. Does it have vowels? Yes or no? And then length. And then you're going to decide if it's interesting or uninteresting. And if you look at the next slide, it gives you the answers there. Rhythm was interesting. Bibliophobia, can't hardly say it, was interesting. Emergence, uninteresting because of the number of E's, and Zen, interesting. And again, interesting is not really something, it's very subjective, but they came up with a rule for it and could train a computer or a person to identify words that are interesting based on the algorithm. This next slide on 15, where it had the answers, has an example of a visual demonstration of a decision tree. We don't have enough time to go through all of that, but if you click on that, the visual demonstration, I'll just share real quick. I'm going to bring it up here and then give you a chance to see what it's about. And then you might use it sometime with students. So this is more of a higher level introduction to machine learning, but it talks about statistical learning to identify patterns in data. And as you scroll down, it will look at sets of data, and they're trying to determine whether a home is in San Francisco or New York. So they look at different ways to classify and determine it. And one of the things that they did was home elevation, because there's definitely a difference in elevation in those two cities. But they can go in and they add other things to it, other factors, and the data changes and the visualization changes as you scroll down. And then it goes through machine learning and how to refine the data. And this is also a good way to show different types of data charts for students, like the histograms and scatter graphs and things like that. So stop sharing there and turn it over to Dee, because we want to stop talking to you and give you some time to do some hands-on stuff. Okay, Dee.
Okay. Oops. I don't think it did it. Hello. Where'd you guys go?
You were sharing. You were. Now I see your screen.
Stop sharing. There we go. Let's try this again. It doesn't like me. Okay. Now can you see me?
Yep. Well,
okay. Can you see
we
this?
can see your screen.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Awesome. So the next one was on a teachable machine. So I've given you a couple of links. The first link down here at the very bottom where it says a tutorial, it's an actual video to watch on how teachable machine works. So our guest speaker was very kind in showing us actually how machines learn through our pictures. So that's what teachable machine is doing. If you actually go into teachable machine, which I actually have here, you can look at image project or posing and things like that. You can actually review them and kind of file through and see how identifying animals through different pictures and how you can use different poses and how the machine has learned to identify different poses. So I'm going to give you probably about 5 minutes just to play with teachable machine, this teachable machine. And again, the link is here or here. So you can actually click on this right here to go to teachable machine. This is for the video. So, and this is the tutorial. So there's several different kind of links that you can use. And again, teachable machine, you'll go into here and you can kind of look at different types of projects, which is kind of cool. And you can also make your own, but I'll give you about 5 minutes to play. as you work through Teachable Machine and your wheels are turning right now, the next slide is a Jamboard. And if you click on the Jamboard, it goes in and it asks you a brief question about what would be an idea that you could use machine learning or teachable machine with your kids. So just, use a sticky, and I did give you a couple slides just so that, just in case one gets too full or whatever. But obviously we've heard from our speaker and we've given you a couple of ideas of things that have come through. How could you use this with your kids or teach them about how AI uses machine learning or teachable machine type stuff? So just as your wheels are turning. So I added mine as I teach them about Creative Commons and social media and digital footprinting and things like that. I talked to them about how machine learning is used to collect data. I see a lot. It's good. Very cool. And if you don't have an idea, that's perfectly fine. I just thought if we could put ideas down, that might help us in lesson planning and things like that. So that's just kind of a step as far as helping us when we're determining lesson plans and things like that.
I was noticing the comment on teaching emotions, happy, sad, surprised. And there are some students that have trouble with that. And I've worked with teachers that have spent a lot of time getting pictures for the students, but this would be kind of an interesting way. And I also wonder if those students could be part of the process of teaching the machine, and they'd be learning along with the machine as they worked on this. Also, I had kind of the first time I used it, I wanted to teach it to recognize a goose. I take a lot of pictures on my walks. So I had a lot of pictures I had taken, and I went through dragging in the pictures and saying it was an example of a goose. And then I went to the part where I was going to test it. And I had a picture of a cat that was outdoors. And first I did some things that were obviously not a goose, and it caught that. But the cat, it said it was a goose. And I realized I had a lot of grass and background stuff in there. So I was focused on the animal itself, but the computer is looking at the whole entire image.
Yeah, it's really easy to give the wrong image as well. Okay, we are going to give you a little break just briefly, mainly because one, I gotta go to the bathroom too. But in your break, if you will go to slide 19, and we're trying to help you come up with some lesson plan ideas and things like that. So if you can put in where you're going to focus on for your lesson, that would be great so that we get you into the right breakout room. Otherwise, I will see you back at 7:07. That work, Ann?
Yeah, I think it does.
I meant 8:07. I'm still looking for rough time. Sorry.
I didn't catch that. Okay. We're gonna change daylight savings time or whatever, do it again.
Hey guys, since I teach both middle and high school, is there any suggestion of what to pick?
Oh, man, that's a
I
good
go back
question.
and forth because I sometimes think, middle school's more introductory because I can get started there and always expand it later. And then I always think, oh, maybe I should go with a harder one because I've got more minds to, I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, a lot of times you can come up with a similar type of lesson for both levels, and then maybe the resources, you'd go in a little bit deeper with the older kids. So I'm not helping, am I?
It's no problem. I think you just pick one and go. So
yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll go in with Angie, just so
Okay.
since I teach
Okay.
elementary.
Otherwise, yeah.
Yep. Oh, I can do that.
Tim had a question about a comment somebody put on the jam board.
All right, give me a second. That in there. Doo-doo. Oh. Did you put that down, Ann, that you have 2 objects to train the computer?
No, I didn't. We just have to ask.
Oh.
Out. I didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Once I looked at the jam board, I understood the question.
Yeah.
I was Brian.
Mm-hmm.
So after the break, maybe he can tell us how that went.
I realized that my time is off up there. So I have 1 minute till 8:07.
I was going to say, yeah, that was a
very
long
generous.
Here is not 8:07.
Yeah, that ended up being like an 8 minutes. I didn't
Oops. I oopsed, sorry. I will probably just walk them through the AI course rather than actually let them do too much in it. Just because of time.
Yep.
If that's okay. Not that I think we need to do too much in the course requirement area as well. But.
Yep, and that's pretty well spelled out on the slides, which is good.
Because I know the breakout room really helps coming up with lesson plans.
So I just got back and I'm going to read a young kid a story while this is going. So are you putting people in breakouts yet or no?
Not yet.
Okay, you can just put me in there, but that's what I'm trying to wrap up as we're doing this. So thank you.
Yeah.
Do you want to ask them if they're back to
Yeah, if
show themselves?
Yeah, if everybody's back, because I can't tell time, go ahead and at least, either show yourself for a second, and then we will run right on. Hey,
we got another. Oh, where the wild things are.
That's my favorite book. I have Max. Okay, so with everybody pretty much coming back, I'm going to share my screen. And hopefully this works. We shall see. Okay. And we will go ahead. Come on. Play. Oh, presenter mode. Thank you. We'll see. Okay, that is not what I want. Go away. There we go. Thank you. Hit play.
My take on life is that life is definitely there for the taking. What you put in is what you'll get out. Two things important to me in life are family and music. They both play a huge part in my life. Technology allows me to be my own one-man band. I try to be as independent as I can, and the way that I do that mostly is with low tech, which is a white cane, and high tech, which is a phone. Seeing AI. Seeing AI is one of the biggest deals in technology, I think, at the moment for visually impaired users. It's an app that you can read almost anything, anywhere with it. Kilburn High Road. Fashion, workspace, mayonnaise. It has a multitude of functions, and they all work together to produce something that you can use whenever you need it. It might even be considered to be a Swiss Army knife of apps. Of all the parts of Seeing AI, I really do think short text is the biggest of the game changers. Northwest 6. Because I've never seen anything like that in any other app before. And I like being in the back of cabs or in buses and pointing it out the window and seeing what I pass on the way to places. Mobile phone NC 4000 services. One of the greatest things about short text for me is that if there's no one else in the house, I can sort the post into who's who. Mrs. K. Louis. Mrs. Kirsten Louis. So I don't open my wife's post and she doesn't get cross with me. Gosh.
Oh, well, Andre.
I'm good, Alex.
Good.
Come on, Bella. £20.
That's really cool.
Currency is a very useful channel because sometimes it's very difficult to know what notes actually are. So with currency, I can detect that straight away. £5. Job done. 2025.
Well done.
Scene preview. Scene is actually really cool. It's quite descriptive, really.
Processing. A store filled with lots of different types of fruit.
I think that's pretty amazing. Terrific. In my view, one of the best parts of Seeing AI is the ability to read pictures from social media. Because so many times someone will send me a picture of something that I cannot understand. So I will share that picture to Seeing AI. Scene.
Probably a group of people sitting on a bench in a park.
And then I'll get a description of what it is.
Person. 8-year-old boy with black hair looking happy. 7-year-old girl with brown hair looking disgusted.
And it's changed how I can view social media. It feels like I can participate.
Like, reply.
Far more than I could before.
Thank you for sharing. Handwriting preview.
With Handwriting Channel, I was actually able to read a card from a family member last year. That's the first time I'd actually been able to do that without help.
Dear Dad.
Alice worked. We can tell if Jake's been writing well, if the handwriting type can recognize it. That's good proof, really.
We love you, Daddy. XXXXXX.
We've got lots of X's. The effect of having Sing AI to hand all the time is like having somebody who can see in your pocket.
34-year-old man with a beard wearing a hat looking happy.
There's so much more that I can do now that I couldn't before. You've grown up.
I used to be nice.
I think Seeing AI really is a huge technological step down the road, and I hope that we can continue down a road like this for many years to come.
So how I use this is through our code.org lesson or unit 7 in discoveries is all about machine learning. So my students right now are at the stage of they've seen this and then they go to this link right here and it actually shows this page on all this data and how AI is used in the workforce. And so they do research on that. They watch videos, they do article inquiries, and as they go through all of their information, they find out that machine learning is basically a lot of data collection. So then, and the reason why I'm going through this kind of rapid is so that we have enough time for our breakout rooms. But the next part, oh, go away.
My take on life is that
I don't want you. I want this. Thank you. So then they take a survey in this lesson, and it is a link if you were to ever want to go to it, but it takes you to this lesson on patterns. You do have to sign into code.org to get to it, but once you're in patterns, it has you do this kind of lovely shoe recommender game. And then it goes on to improve it. How would you improve it? Again, it's machine learning. So it's learning through how you pick recommendations. And so it's like that tree that Anne was trying to talk, that decision tree of where it comes down and based on what you pick, it's going to give you an outcome. And then eventually you'll see that they actually take a survey, and then the following unit actually, or lesson actually takes data eventually and pulls that data, and you actually input it into an app, and they learn how to take this machine learned data that they've collected to then create a better working app to give a more sound kind of reflection or what, you know, like depending on what the person wants out of it. The next slide is Anne's.
Okay. We're going to give you some time in breakout rooms to do some lesson planning because lesson plans are due next week. We're going to have lesson plan sharing, and want to give you some time in your groups to talk about what topic you're thinking about doing or what resources you may have found that you want to use with the students, because you've seen over the course of these 3 sessions how broad and vast the field of artificial intelligence and machine learning is. So you want to probably focus, especially if you're doing this for the first time with students, So we've got a group of middle school and high school. We've got one elementary person, but Dee is going to join you in your breakout room. So when you get into the breakout rooms first, tell everybody who you are, if you need to remind them, and just what you're thinking of. If you haven't already started your lesson plan, tell them what you'd like to focus on or any resources. And then in your group, you can feel free to bring up some of the lesson plans. There's a link there, and then just kind of, if you find something that works for you or for somebody else in your group, you can have them look at it. So are there any questions yet on that? Okay, Allison, do you have the rules for what?
How long?
I had 10 down, but I think we're probably going to aim for 7. But we'll pop in and see how you're doing, because we're getting down towards the end. But I think we can do a good 7 minutes. Thank you, Dee. Okay, we're ready to send them. Okay, getting everybody back, and some questions were brought up about the MindSpark stuff and some other issues that people wanted to ask questions after the class is over, so we'll stick around for a little bit. So if you have questions, Dee's going to be talking in a little bit about the requirements, going over that again, the fun stuff. I also want to remind you, at the end of every agenda, there are a ton of links. And so if you haven't found the resources you like yet, look at that. And each one, like tonight's resources, are all on artificial intelligence. And Beth was telling me about one that's, I'm going to add there, experiment with Google. And she said there's a whole section there on artificial intelligence. So I will add that there. And if you know of any links, you should be able to just add them. And if you can't, email them to us. Any questions yet about the lesson plans?
I'm just curious if anybody's tried has anybody taught the AI module for code.org, or is that even available yet?
Dee has taught it, and yes, it is available. It's there in the middle school curriculum, the CS Discovery. So, yep. And it's pretty fun. I was doing it with my grandkids too, some of it, where they have to identify a fish or not a fish, and there's garbage that flies by. And of course, one of my grandsons was going to try and trick it and say that some of the garbage was a fish. And then he found that his AI wasn't doing so good, so he had to retrain it. Okay, Dee, I'm going to turn it back over to you.
Okay, so I'm on slide 23, and basically I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about the requirements and kind of some information about it. So again, 6 to 9 of the MindSpark class courses, they can be any of them. And, you know, you just take a screenshot of your certificate and slide it into that, I think it's a Google Doc that you have that's available into that document. And the date they have is May 15th. So you have a lot of time actually. And then the lesson plan, it's basically what we're doing for next week. You can literally use that. And some of the examples I was giving is we all start the school year with, you know, like little questions of like, hey, who's done this, or who's gone to the beach for this lesson, you know, like for spring break or whatever. That's neural networking. Okay. You can easily take a piece of string and, you know, toss it to everybody who's went to the beach, and then anybody that went to an amusement park for spring break. That's a lesson. And that's how easy it can be. So that's neural networking. And you can easily tie it into the MindSpark neural networking, because that's one of the examples that they kind of show is a class. And, you know, Angie and I were talking, and it's something you could do. I could teach my 2-year-olds all the way up to my middle school, high schoolers. I mean, we do these daily. things like that. So you'll have a lesson plan, and then you will go to the next slide, which talks about our classroom toolkit type stuff. So this is only for those that are getting credit. So like grad credit. You're going to take this and you're going to use this document. Yep. And just, it's basically like a reflection of what you're doing as you go through those 6 to 9. There, it's just a, reflect through like vocabulary, and there's all sorts of little things. And then let's see, we got how you would implement it. So like Tim, you said, hey, is that course open? That's an implementing machine learning. So that's easy. So that's kind of what I did, is I said, ooh, Code.org is doing this free course. I'm gonna use this as my data portion of my standards that have to be taught for technology, because it talks about collecting data and shows them how to deal with inputting data into using some of their system. So that it was super easy and streaming. And so that's a great way to show how you're going to implement it. Then you've got a share folder, which should be also on our agenda, I believe, as well as it's the first slide. First slide has it as well. And you put basically everything in it. You can, like, I'm really nitpicky, and I find my little own folder and put everything in for my own. But yeah, you're going to implement everything there so that they can get to it. And then let's see. I think, yeah, so May 15th is our deadline. You have from now basically until May 15th. So that is kind of a long time. And, if you're not a procrastinator and you need to, go through a few things a little bit more with time, you have plenty of time. Life happens, and I understand. If you have questions, Ann and I are always available through email. And if you can't get a hold of us, Samantha and Allison are definitely available. If you have questions on this, we can definitely talk about this afterwards, or we can, you can ask me real quick questions too. I'm trying to get you out of here is really what I'm trying to do. So our last slides, I have an activity. It's basically, again, it's machine learning where you have to pick the human versus an AI object. That is a link that you can observe and look through at your own time.
And we might be able to do it next week.
Yeah, we can definitely put it in as a welcoming type thing. But I do want to say, Ann and I and Alice, I want to say thank you for coming back after spring break and listening to us, because I understand being a teacher as well. There's a survey link right there. And Ann and Allison and I will stay on as long as you need us to ask us as many questions as you need to get through your mind spark. We totally understand.
And that survey link is on slide 26.
Yes, sorry. And Allison gave it to us. So
and the slides after that are ones on a machine learning program that's pretty cool with Scratch, but we did not have time to get into it because it's kind of complex, but it's really, really.
It is pretty cool.
And there's some links for it in this document in our agenda. So go ahead and do the survey link, sign off. And if you want to ask questions, stay put.
One question I have is like all the extra resources and the slides and like the agendas, how long are we going to have access to those?
I think forever, unless the cloud disappears.
Okay.
We make a new, we'll make a new folder for another cohort. So your folder will stay intact.
Okay, thank you.
Question.
Will it get better with machine learning over time and just to keep adding good resources, or? Sorry, bad Bad joke.
No, that's.
We just got to keep training. You can be our.
That's what I told
data
Angie.
source.
It's, you know, like you get like this bucket full of all these resources eventually that you can start using.
I feel like there's tons of stuff here. Just have to pick and choose which ones be best for your class. So.
Yep.
Hey, okay, so I'm a bad person. What was the classroom toolkit on that last slide? That was a requirement for credit.
So the classroom toolkit is basically a document where you go in. So if I did neural networking, I can't even tell you what number it is or whatever. I'd go down to neural networking and I would fill in, like, if there's vocabulary that would pop out, if there's just little questions. It's kind of like a
study guide.
So is it,
It's a study guide to go with the MindSpark courses.
so there's a template for that?
Yeah, Tim, I think it's the one I sent you that I
Yeah.
called it the organizer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's one
that
it will
link.
force you to make a copy of it, but
Yep.
then that's what it
Yep,
is.
I opened that up already, so I've got it right in front of me. That's
Yep.
perfect. Thank you.
Yep.
Mhm.
Appreciate everything, guys. Thanks so much.
You're welcome.
Have a good night, Tim.
And Beth, your question earlier about the MindSpark courses, that document that they were just talking about, that's the study guide, or what is it again? The toolkit organizer, that lists the different MindSpark AI modules. So I know it can look a little overwhelming when you get into MindSpark to get into just the part that you want.
I think you're muted, Beth.
See that now. So it's basically anything that says AI, right? Create a Spark for AI, ethics in AI.
Yep.
Okay. So I
All
think,
of it.
yeah, AI in your curriculum, all
Yeah.
of that.
Yep.
Okay. In the chat box, guys, I put that link that's there where it says, this is the link for experiments with Google.
And that's, I got that in our agenda too. I put it in there at the.
Yeah, so if you go into that, there's just tons of stuff. Like experiments itself has over 1,650 and counting. The blob is hilarious, but then collections can be more specific with AI and things like that. But yeah, I found it last week and I showed Ashley, and Ashley was like, holy buckets, this is so cool.
Well, and I like the fact you mentioned that it's subject specific, some of it like music and art and things that some kids are drawn to. What was the other one there? Yeah, it's writing was another one.
Yeah, I mean, there's just a multitude to go. Science is even in there, but maybe that's I think I'll probably use this source as for my lesson plan for more of a little exploration and things.
It's pretty.
Yeah.
Man,
Okay.
I'm using this on Friday with my kids.
Oh, are you? Did you guys get into it?
Yeah,
Yeah, you need to go to where it says experiments, and you have to go down a ways, but this one is hilarious. I shared it with the staff, and it's the blob opera.
Okay. I will do it. This will be awesome.
Yeah, it's very simple to use. Yeah, there it is. Blob opera. Oh my gosh. They loved it. Absolutely loved it.
I think our mind was kind of giggly because it was conference time too. So
It's perfect. Eighth graders, so this could be really fun.
Yeah, it just was a great, and there's a whole category of music. So I had some kids they were standing in front of their computers conducting because they're, because they could be seen. And so that, maybe that's another thing too, is the, maybe music, maybe I might use music more, but yeah, blob opera. Oh, there's a blob opera on tour now. So Hilarious. I'm gonna have to check that out.
So fun.
Thanks.
Okay.
Those are
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Okay.
Good night.
Thanks.
See ya.
Have a good rest of the week.
You
Yeah.
You
too.
too.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm totally using this on Friday.
That is cool. Okay.
All right.
One good thing about this, well, any of the courses that